Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. They beat him up, then find out he's a U.S. Army general. It was a quiet evening in the neighborhood of Westwood, a peaceful suburb just like the postcards. Street lamps cast a soft light on the maple-lined sidewalks, the lawns were impeccably trimmed, and behind the still-lit windows, you could see families sitting at tables, children finishing their homework, or couples watching television. A light breeze rustled the leaves, and the air carried the familiar sense of jasmine and freshly cut grass. Nothing, absolutely nothing, suggested that an unexpected event would disturb this tranquility. John Carter, tall, solid despite his years, walked with the upright posture of men who have known order and discipline. He wore a long, dark gray coat, closed to the neck, and a classic hat tilted slightly on his forehead. Under his arm, he held a small bag containing a confidential file that he was to deliver early the next day to Washington. He had just spent 2 hours in the company of his former brothers in arms, around a discreet dinner in a veterans' restaurant. They had laughed, reminisced, secret missions, fallen comrades, silent victories. This evening was a parenthesis of memory and humanity in a life forged by duty. John was in no hurry. He liked walking alone, listening to the sounds of the night, feeling the ground beneath his feet. He had barely turned the corner onto 8th Avenue, heading toward the hotel where he was staying, when a patrol car slowed down alongside him. Inside, Agent Mark Davis, a nervous 30-something with drawn features and a still-clenched jaw, scanned the street. He frowned when he saw Carter's silhouette. "Who is this guy?" he growled at his two colleagues. Steve Reynolds, an older agent, a converted former military man, took a quick look. "Maybe a walker, he looks harmless." But Davis, who had already accumulated several warnings for aggressive behavior, did not see it that way. "He's walking alone, at this hour, in a residential area? Strange." With a sudden movement, he stopped the car, opened the door and jumped out onto the sidewalk. Carter stopped, his gaze calm but attentive. Instinct never failed him. He sensed in the officer's attitude not a desire to verify, but one to intimidate. "Hey you! What are you doing here so late? Show me your papers," Davis said in a dry, almost provocative tone. Carter stared at him for a moment. He had heard that tone so many times in war zones. But here, in an American neighborhood, he found it even more disturbing. He slowly raised his hands to show he posed no threat. "I'm an American citizen, Agent. I just had dinner with some friends. I'm just going back to my hotel." Davis moves forward with a step, aggressive. "I told you to show me your papers. You don't look like you're from around here. I'm here on official business. I haven't done anything wrong." "Why the aggression?" Davis's gaze hardened. He stepped closer and, without warning, abruptly grabbed Carter's arm. Carter reflexively took a step back, not out of fear, but to avoid a physical escalation. "You want to play smart, huh? Who do you think you are? A guy walking around Westwood at midnight, that's suspicious. You're suspected of theft." "You're mistaken, officer. I'm not a criminal." The tone quickly rose. The exchanged words, initially tense but controlled, turned into a full-blown verbal confrontation. Davis's colleagues, Steve Reynolds and Jason Lee, approached with a hurried step, their hands ready to intervene. Davis's gaze, already filled with cold anger, hardened further. Without warning, he launched a sharp, violent blow directly at the chest of John Carter. The shock made the general stumble back several steps, his figure reeling from the brutality of the impact. The surrounding silence was instantly replaced by murmurs and hushed exclamations. Several passers-by, caught off guard, stopped their movements. Some took out their phones to film, while others watched, horrified but paralyzed by the urgency of the situation. Reynolds and Lee, without hesitation, lunged at Carter, forcefully pinning him to the ground. Despite his age, the general did not give in easily. He moved with the poise of a man accustomed to defending himself, trying to protect his face and avoid blows. But the officers were determined to assert their authority, striking repeatedly. The blows rained down, sharp and echoing through the quiet Westwood night. The clash between military discipline and the violence of the street created a brutal contrast. A few passers-by moved a little closer, some whispering accusations against the officers, others trying to calm the growing crowd. Amidst the confusion, while Carter was still immobilized, Steve Reynolds rummaged absently through the pockets of the man's coat. His fingers brushed against a leather object. He pulled out a worn wallet and opened it with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. A flash of gold immediately caught his eye, a shining military badge, adorned with the official seal of the United States Armed Forces. His gaze fell on the engraved inscription, striking and clear. General John M. Carter, United States Army. Time seemed to stand still. A profound silence fell over the scene. The whispers ceased, the phones were put away, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Reynolds looked up, his face pale and frozen in surprise. He let out a breath of disbelief. Davis, who still maintained his firm grip on Carter, suddenly released his hands, pale as a sheet. "Wait, wait," he stammered, struggling to find his words. John Carter slowly, his dignity intact despite the pain, straightened up, leaning on one hand. He delicately wiped away a drop of blood that was trickling down the corner of his mouth. In a clear voice, imbued with serene authority, he declared, "I have served this country for 35 years. I have never failed in my duties, neither to my country nor to my fellow citizens." Around them, the faces of the passers-by now reflected something other than fear or curiosity, a dull anger, a silent disapproval of the officer's unjustified brutality. Some murmured among themselves, others crossed their arms, showing their support for the general. A few minutes later, a police car with blue and red flashing lights burst into the street. From inside, he quickly got out Captain Laura Mitchell, a woman of imposing stature, known for her integrity and strong sense of justice. Informed of the incident, she immediately took control. In a firm but calm tone, she addressed the officers, ordering, "I want a full report on what just happened. And no action taken until I have personally examined the facts." Then, addressing Carter respectfully, she added, "General, I am sorry for what happened to you. We will get to the bottom of this incident." The crowd, still present, felt the tension gradually dissipate, replaced by a mixture of hope and relief. But everyone knew that this night would remain etched in their memories, a symbol of the need to respect human dignity, whatever the circumstances. The video of the brutal arrest went viral across the country within hours. First posted by a local teenager on social media, it vividly depicted a disturbing scene, an elderly black man pinned to the ground, repeatedly punched by police officers, before a military badge fell from his pocket. The precise moment the badge was picked up, and the stunned look on the officer's face as he read it, were replayed repeatedly, crystallizing the gravity of the situation. The reactions were immediate. CNN, NBC, Fox News, France 24, all major media broadcast the sequence live, with the following banner: U.S. Army General humiliated by police. Police brutality, when one of their own becomes a target. Westwood, the case that shakes America. The TV shows ignited. Veterans spoke out in shock. Voices usually on opposing sides of the political divide came together to denounce the injustice. A Vietnam veteran declared on a national network, "It's not just a man who was hit. He's a symbol." When even a general can be treated like this, what about the average citizen? Social media exploded. The hashtag Justice for General Carter became #1 worldwide in less than 24 hours. Thousands of messages of support poured in, including from former presidents, Hollywood actors, soldiers serving overseas, and young civil rights activists. The next morning, in a packed and tense municipal hall, the mayor of Westwood, Robert Hansen, appeared before the cameras. Visibly affected, he read a prepared statement in a deep voice, somewhere between anger and shame. "What happened last night in our city is unacceptable. We will not tolerate any abuse of power, any unjustified use of force, neither against our citizens nor against those who have served our nation with honor." An internal and independent investigation is already underway. And I am personally committed to ensuring that the truth is established, without compromise. A few hours later, General John M. Carter, still physically weakened but standing, appeared in a brief official video released by his entourage. Dressed in his impeccable uniform, his gaze was firm, his voice calm, each word chosen with precision. What happened to me is indicative of a deeper problem. It's not a personal matter. It's a reflection of a system that sometimes confuses authority with intimidation. It's not about pointing the finger at a city, but about collectively questioning ourselves. I chose not to respond to violence with anger because I still believe in dialogue, responsibility, and above all, justice. Let this experience serve as a lesson. Not to divide, but to unite. This simple yet powerful message sent shockwaves through the world, being shared millions of times within hours. In the days that followed, the Westwood Police Department was placed under temporary federal surveillance. Chief of Police, Captain Laura Mitchell, ordered a complete review of intervention protocols. An independent audit was commissioned, and a mandatory training program on civil rights, unconscious bias, and de-escalation was implemented. The 3 agents involved, Mark Davis, Steve Reynolds, and Jason Lee, were suspended with immediate effect, pending the outcome of the investigation. Their files were reviewed, and it was revealed that Davis had already been the subject of 2 internal reports for excessive use of force, which were suppressed due to lack of evidence. This revelation increased public outrage. As for General Carter, far from withdrawing into himself, he became, despite himself, a central figure in the national debate. Refusing to fuel hatred or divisions, he accepted the numerous invitations extended to him across the country. He spoke at several prestigious universities, Harvard, Georgetown, Columbia, where he gave lectures on leadership, ethics, power, and responsibility. He spoke to young people, law enforcement officers in training, and political leaders. He recounted his journey, his vision of patriotism, and the invisible wounds that are sometimes inflicted through ignorance, fear, or misused authority. In a speech that went viral, he said, "It's not military might that defines a country. It's how it treats its own people, especially the most vulnerable. Respect isn't imposed by force. It's built by example." What began as a brutal arrest became, within weeks, a moment of national unity. A collective awakening. Several states announced plans to strengthen the training of their law enforcement agencies, and Congress opened a debate on the need for a national database of officers with violent or repeat offenses. And meanwhile, John Carter, ever modest, continued his quiet but determined fight to make his story a spark for lasting change.